Hi there, I'm the Rookie Woodworker and welcome back to the channel. For today's project, I'm going to make a picture frame. The only thing I know about this picture frame is the size of the picture I want to put in it. So when I go out in that garage, I'm going with a blank canvas. I'm going to pick out a piece of wood that looks good for this picture, and I'm going to chop it up, route some edges into it, and I'm going to slap it together, and it's going to turn out like this. Yeah, seriously, it turns out like that. If you want to see how I do it, stick around and watch the video. Alright, this big piece of Purple Heart looks like a good choice. We'll take that over to the planer and mill that down nice and flat on both sides. We'll use multiple passes, even though this video looks like we're doing it in one pass. But yeah, we'll go down in multiple passes to get it right. And just like that, it is silky smooth. Alright, that's enough rubbing it now. Then I'll take it over to the joiner and get a nice perfectly flat side in preparation for the table saw. Now that we're on our Barbie Playhouse table saw, we're going to take two nice 2.5 inch wide chunks out of this piece. Now we'll use the router to route out the groove that the glass, the photo itself, and then the backing will sit in for this picture frame. Probably should have took more than one pass here and take a little bit at a time instead of taking it all at once, but you know, sometimes I just dive right into it. But that's how it turned out. It looks pretty decent. So now I'll look for a bit, try to carve into the face of this frame. That way it's not just a boring square. And looks like nothing in here really is catching my eye. No, not that thing. That won't work out too well. Get rid of that. The other box. There's nothing really in there. Just a bunch more cheap bits that do no good. Ah, I know where I can find some more bits. In the toolbox. There's some bigger ones in there. That's what we need. Something that'll take a big chunk out of it. Nah, not that. What is that? Yeah, that'll do. I like it. I like it. A cabinetry bit. With a big bit like this, you want to take a little bit off at a time. Just run it through there, take a little off, then raise it up just a hair, then take a little bit more off until you get to the spot you want to be. Alright, so at this point, I'm starting to have some router troubles. My router started slowing down and losing power, and eventually just didn't have enough in it to keep on cutting. So that put this job on hold. So I ended up cracking open the manual, and this is where I learned something new about this router. It's a Craftsman router, 2.25 horse. I found out that the brushes in the motor are a wearable item, meaning that they wear out over time, and you can replace them. They sell the replacement parts. It's fairly cheap. It's like $15 on Amazon. So I got the brushes and replaced them. And at this point in the story, you're probably thinking, wow, that's pretty insightful of you to look in the manual to see what's wrong rather than just buying another router. And, well, you would be wrong about that because I did buy another router before I cracked open the manual. But anyway, we'll get back to that later on. I replaced those brushes. It started running great, and it started cutting pretty well, but it still had that ticking noise going on that wasn't there before. It bothered me. Couldn't figure out what it is. Looked around, see if there was some wood stuck in there somewhere. I couldn't see where anything was lodged where it shouldn't be. So I just started making some cuts, making some passes, cutting a little bit deeper into it as I went, and it didn't take long before it started losing power again. Slowed down and eventually stopped again. Well, that's not good. So it turns out it was a good thing that I bought another router before I cracked open the manual. But anyway, I tore apart the motor, I took the cover off of it, and at this point I looked in there and I found that the motor was missing a chunk out of it. And as those brushes were coming around, they were hitting this gap, and it was chewing up them brushes a lot faster than what they would normally wear out. But yeah, that motor's pretty much shot. So yeah, that router's done for. Good thing I bought another router. I guess that worked out anyway. So yeah, but on with the project. So with the new router here, it was easy to just unbox it and get that thing popped in and get the show started again. That thing ran so much better. Wow, what a difference. Now it's time to chop it up in its lengths. Now whenever you cut this thing out to make the square, you want to make sure your lengths are set by that inside groove that your picture is going to sit in, not by the inside edge, the inside groove. And we'll put it all together and make sure our corners look good before we glue it up. For this step, what I need is a little bit of glue and some tape. Painter's tape usually. I don't really use box clamps and stuff like that for these picture frames. I just put the glue on, get it nice and tacky, then stick them together, and then use the tape to hold it tight together. And that normally does pretty good for me. And then we'll reinforce it later with something different. One thing I probably shouldn't have done here was left it dry on top of a cardboard box. Yeah. But no big deal. It'll sand right off. It'll be fine. And now I use the spline jig to cut all four corners and get ready to put some splines in this thing. One day, whenever I upgrade my table saw and have to rebuild this jig, I'll post a video on that then too. And we'll use the thickness planer to plane down some 1/8 inch thick splines. Ideally we do this with a drum sander, but I do not have a drum sander, so I'm going to do that with this. And now what happens is when you get down to like an 1/8 inch thickness level, the blades tend to want to start chipping away at the piece that you're cutting into. And unfortunately in this you'll see that I had a little bit of chip out here at the end. That could have got scary. But no worries, we didn't have any problems with it. I still have enough material to cut my splines out, so we'll move on with it. Honestly, with how thin this material it is, it probably would have been a better idea to do this on a bandsaw instead of over here on this miter saw. I'll think about that for the next time. And I'll go ahead and squeeze a bunch of glue in that gap there and use my patented glue spreader there to go ahead and make sure it's spread out nice and evenly throughout there. And then we'll start shoving them splines in there. Geez, Earl, the instructions are unclear when you use the word there for everything. Then I'll use the bandsaw to cut off the excess. A handsaw or one of them Japanese flush cut saws, they work just fine for this. Then I'll use my belt sander to sand it the rest of the way flush and nice and pretty. Then we'll get to the rest of the sanding where we work from 80 grit to 120 to 240 to, you know what we do here. It's the same as every other thing. And for the finish, I'm going to use a teak oil finish. I like it because it's simple and easy to use. Just put in a nice thick coat and let it soak up for about 10-15 minutes and come back, put another thick coat on it, let it soak up for another 10-15 minutes. And then we'll follow it up with a dry rag and just buff it out. It's nice, it's pretty fast, and usually within a half a day you can start working with it again. So that's why I like his stuff. For some reason, I waited till after I finished to put my keyhole slots in. But yeah, I guess that's something to think about in future projects too. I actually have a video available for how to build this jig on my page. I highly suggest you check it out. It's a jig that I use quite often in my shop, and it's super easy to make. I'll actually put it in the end screen for you here at the end of the video. I actually went with plexiglass for this frame, and I'm cutting that out on a bandsaw. I find that to be the easiest to cut it on. Get a nice clean cut that way. The backboard is actually super easy to cut with a utility knife, but screw it, I'm going to use the bandsaw on it too. And here is where it all comes together. Alright, so there it is, the finished product. If you like that video, go ahead and do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you want to see more videos like this, like the keyhole slot video you should go back and check out, hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell. That way it notifies you the next time I post a video, just like this one. But if you have any questions or comments, let them down in the comment section below. And if you want to go ahead and check out one of these videos that are about to pop up on the screen here, check one of them out too. Until next time, make something awesome.